Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons here with the Next Level Show. Excited to have another great day learning from entrepreneurs, people that have gone before us, that have built things, sold things, and created lots of jobs. We're excited today. Our guest is Judge Graham. So Judge is, wow, what is Judge? He's a lot of things. I guess I could ask you what you want me to tell them that you are.
Yeah, I can. Whatever you want to do it. I'm excited to be here.
We'll get there. So Judge can be found at judgegraham.com, and he's got a lot of cool things in his past. Co-owner and president of SQ1, co-owner and president of, I'm not even going to say this properly, probably, but is it Resai?
Yeah, you boom, you did it.
Resai Interactive,
yeah.
Cool. Been on the Inc. 5000 Best Places to Work Awards, been featured in Adweek, Ad Age, Forbes, Bloomberg, all these other places, and hosts his own podcast called Scale and Exit.
Yep.
So really excited to start learning from Judge today. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. So that's a whole lot of stuff going on. I didn't even mention Ansira, which you sold one of your companies to Ansira, and then you stayed with them for a while, but we'll get to that in a little while. But how did all this start? I mean, what drove you to be an entrepreneur in the first place?
I think a lot of people say it's not born in you. I think it is born in you. So, I mean, ever since I was a little boy, 5, 6 years old, I was fascinated with the idea of selling and making money. So I started selling pencils in 3rd grade, and that turned into selling watches to beepers to
selling watches. Wait a minute, is this like out of the back of your car, the trunk?
Pretty well. I was younger. I didn't have a car at that point, so I think watches was in maybe late elementary, early junior high.
Wow. And
would go buy, got a wholesale license, would go buy watches in bulk, and then turn around and sell them at retail with 40% margins.
A wholesale license at what age?
Probably, I had to get my mom to help me do it, but I came up with the idea. I was probably, 11.
How did you even know that you had to have a wholesale license?
Well, I started to understand margins at a young age, right? So I understood if I was buying something at retail, I was then having to sell it up more. But if I go buy in bulk and discount, I quickly understood that I could still sell it at that price and probably make 15 to 20% more.
Interesting.
So I've always been doing it. Loved that idea. I always at a younger age was fascinated with money and material things. I remember being in my mom's Oldsmobile, and at a young age, probably 5, 6 years old, and this is when seatbelts didn't, matter, and I'm in the front seat, like holding on, right? And I look to the right, and I'm never going to forget. There's this guy, and he's a business guy in a suit, and he's in a black, 500 Mercedes. And I'd never seen that car before, and I was like, "Mom, what is that?" She's like, "Oh, well, that's the Mercedes. That's 80,000 or 70,000 or whatever at the time." I go, "I'm going to get one of those." Right? So I always was fascinated and understood you had to sell, things and to make money.
So were you selling these watches and other things to your classmates or to other people, adults?
To classmates, yeah. At that time, I mean, my audience was school.
Yeah, so that's funny because I remember when I was a kid, my brother was sort of that guy. We'd go to North Carolina to visit my sister who was in boarding school, and they had these rock candy packages. So a little box of rock candy, and you could buy them for like $0.25. Well, we'd go back home, and he'd pull out each string of rock candy and sell each string to his buddies for $0.25. Of course, that was just the convenience. Like it's the convenience store. What do you want right now?
Totally.
I want that. Well, all right, it's $0.25.
Yeah.
So he made money that way, but it was
supply and demand.
Yes, totally supply and demand. But the idea. I mean, I've done over 200 interviews now, and you're the first guy that has ever said at that age you're getting a wholesale license to do anything.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, the number one thing I hear is mowed lawns.
Right.
A lot of people mowed lawns. Walk dogs. Women that have done pet sitting and babysitting and all that, and even one woman who mowed lawns. I was really impressed by that. So anyway, so that's cool. So at what point did you actually turn it into sort of a business, so to speak, where you had maybe other employees, or it turned into something that you could sell?
Sure. So I went to Texas Christian University, TCU, go Frogs, and my major at the time was called e-business. It was the first major ever in this. It was
e-business,
core competencies in computer science, finance, and marketing. And this was kind of towards the .com bubble. So think like 2000-ish. And I learned how to build websites. And at that time, I'm in, school, wanted extra money. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go sell. Businesses need websites. Sure. I can build a website. So my business partner and I, was a best friend in college, started this company. And I used to walk up and down Camp Bowie, if people listening are familiar with Fort Worth. And I would just hit these businesses. And in one weekend, I sold 8 websites.
Wow.
Right? And so I said, wow, we can make some pretty good money doing this. And that transformed into me almost not graduating college, but I did, and starting and growing a company to probably 20 or 30 employees, kind of my last year in school, and really taking off in that first company, which was called Resai.
So what's Resai all about? What's the name mean?
So it's all about available domain names, right? My business
still is.
My business partner had a photographer. It was in his dorm room, or I guess our house or apartment, wherever we were living, and it was Brassai, so Brassai. And I said, why don't we just drop the B and call it Resai? And so that's the story.
Well,
nothing too.
I'm a little guilty of that too. My company's called Reata, Reata, and I had that name for a few years before I actually created the acronym, or the words that then turned that into an acronym.
That's
so
great.
It's pretty funny. So you're doing this starting in college, and you have a partner, you say.
Yep.
And so you guys are equal partners, and did you keep that as a partnership until it sold, or did you guys?
Yeah, so that business, and this is probably the best part of my story that I'm the most grateful for. That business failed.
Oh.
So I started with, we had success. I mean, we were growing and making money, but this book called Mastering Recurring Revenue, the reason I wrote this book was because of my first business. And what happened is it was project-based. So I was selling websites, right? And we would sell more and more and more. You have to get more staff. You need more people. You need more overhead. But guess what? If those projects don't replenish, so we couldn't get ahead of the cash flow. So it just got to the point where, you had to sell, a couple $100,000 a month just to replace, to start covering expenses.
Yeah.
And I then, had a personal bankruptcy. I mean, it was a huge low for me. And on paper, everything looked successful. Fort Worth Small Business of the Year, we had this 10,000 square foot space. We had all these things. We had all these employees. But at the end of the day, you weren't really making money.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I said, whatever I do moving forward, I know that I'm going to have recurring revenue. And it was just critical in the model moving forward.
Sorry, it's pretty sad when the host doesn't turn his iPhone off.
I'm just glad it wasn't me. So it's all good.
I can't say that it's the first time it's happened to me either.
No worries.
So Resai, so it went down just because you couldn't make enough sales?
Yeah, and my business partner and I had some differences, but I mean, I think the core root of that was that. So, at that point, I'm recently married, because we did this business several years kind of post-college. Recently married, baby coming on the way, dead broke.
Perfect time for a bankruptcy.
Perfect time, right? And so, I talk about a concept, you got to burn the ships. You got to be fully freaking committed. I can tell you what, man, when you're freaking dead broke, you're married, and you have a new child coming, that's commitment, right? You have a choice to either dig deep or go in the corner and cry. And my wife was amazing at the time and still is amazing, and supported me and said, you know what? I know that you're an entrepreneur. We're going to figure this out and go continue to chase that dream. And, fast forward, I met my other business partner, worked my way into that company as an equity owner, and over time and literally grew. That was another failing business. And we took that business from like sub 600,000 revenue and grew it to close to 40 million in rev in like 5 years.
And that was the SQ1?
That was SQ1, and then we sold that one.
And what was that business about?
Had recurring. So it was still in the digital space, but it was media driven. So I had retainers and ongoing contracts based on media spend. So it was fantastic, right? So as I won an account, as long as I retained it, it was just compounded, right?
Yeah.
So, we were growing in 30, 40% clips every year before we sold.
So you're selling airtime and representing people for air buys?
Buys, but digital buys. So pay-per-click, social media, display, all of those things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and what year did you start that?
I'm really bad with years. So it was like
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was like 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
And so as you guys grew that, I mean, to go from 600,000 to 40 million in revenue
In less than 6 years.
that's a gigantic pop. So what was it that allowed you to do that? I mean, how did you build the organization to sustain that kind of growth?
So I'm really not trying to plug all my books,
No,
but
well,
Scale
if
with
you're
Speed.
not, you're an idiot. So
So my first
away.
book, Scale with Speed, it really made me step back and answer that question. So it was all about this formula speed, right? So it's start with your end game, pick your niche, execute with speed, and then dominate your top priority, or energize your culture and then dominate your top priorities. And that framework is what allowed me to grow that fast. So I'm a firm believer of if you don't know your end game, you don't know where to go to, right? So my business partner and I were super clear on this is what we want and when we want it. And then if you're not operating with speed, I mean, like I'll make 15 decisions before most entrepreneurs will make one because I'm so confident in my ability, even if they're wrong, I'm so far ahead, I'm course correcting.
right.
And growing a company that type of scale requires rapid fire decision making and massive action, right? Then it requires people. How do you energize and create a culture of people that are freaking swimming in the Kool-Aid and believe in it? And then how do you get everybody aligned and in rhythm to dominate your top priorities? So I have this whole framework that walks you through how do you get in 30 minutes from the CEO to the intern everybody aligned against the core annual objectives down to a daily task and how you measure and optimize it.
Wow.
And so that framework allowed me to grow it that way.
Well, cool. Perfect time. We're going to take our first break.
Cool.
We'll be right back after this. Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons here again with the Next Level Show. We are back with Judge Graham, and you can check him out online, judgegraham.com. And for those of you that are like me, Graham is spelled Graham.
Like the cracker.
Like the
Yeah, that's easy, right?
I could go a lot of ways with that right now, but I think I'll just let that ride. All right, so your book is called Scale with Speed, and so that's all about how you grow that organization fast, get everybody aligned on it. So give us a couple of snippets from that then. What are some of the key takeaways that allowed you guys to grow? Because, I mean, you had to grow with the sales, so you had to create a sales system to allow that growth, and then you had to have a delivery system to deliver what you're selling. So let's focus on the sales for a minute. What did you do to try and actually scale that sales infrastructure?
So there's two things. I'm a firm believer niche will get you rich. Go an inch wide and a mile deep. So once you bring clarity to the organization of who you are, what you do, why you do it, what proof you have to be the market leader, and that becomes crystallized, your value proposition, how you sell, the uniqueness, your case studies, your processes, who you hire, all becomes much easier, right? Hey, if you constantly sell one thing really, really, really well, your training process delivery becomes much easier. So I start there, right?
Just because you're narrowing the
Yeah,
field.
pick your niche. So the P is pick your niche in the SPEED formula.
Okay,
right?
so SPEED is an acronym.
Acronym. Start
Okay.
with your end game.
Okay.
Pick your niche. Execute with speed. Energize your culture and dominate your top priorities.
Okay.
And so we're talking about, so if I was to extract a couple, pick your niche is key, right? And then the energize your culture, I'm a firm believer, if you don't have people, you don't have a real business. Now, no offense to people listening, solopreneurs, I'm kind of a solopreneur now.
Yeah.
You can make a ton of money, you can have great, but if you want to grow a freaking monster company, you need people. And I learned quickly without culture, growth culture, and people swimming in the Kool-Aid and believing in that culture and understanding what it means for them and how we are delivering for our customers, you can't get scale. So the two takeaways here are pick your niche, be very clear on who you are, what you do, why you do it, and what proof you have to be that market leader, and then build your culture around delivering against that niche.
Okay. So you guys are doing a digital sale, and your customer then was who?
Could be Jiffy Lube. Jiffy Lube is a past client of mine.
Okay. So retailers.
Yeah.
Basically was so in retailers that's a pretty big area.
Sure.
So did you guys even go more specific to auto services or
our specific was more in the service. So we said, listen, all we do is digital direct response marketing. So I'm going to use digital tactics with a digital strategy, and I'm going to deliver you money. So I sold money. You give me $5, $1, I'm going to give you $5. So everything with us was rooted in analytics, measurement, and optimization. So we were selling more customers, or we were selling more oil changes, or we were selling more upsells at the cash register.
Right.
That's what I sold.
Right. So you weren't trying to be all things to all people. So you weren't going to IBM and trying to sell them pay-per-click. You weren't doing it you were focused on business to consumer, not business to business, it sounds like.
Specifically, my niche was more, could I track it and measure it and show the impact? And if it was yes, then great. If IBM came in and said, we want to hire you to do a brand awareness campaign using digital, we weren't interested, because we were able to keep customers because I could show you. You gave me $1, I gave you $5.
Yeah, you gave them ROI.
Correct.
And actually, that's one of the big problems with a lot of advertising is there's not a tangible ROI.
Right.
I mean, here we are on the radio.
Sure.
And we also podcast this, of course, and on YouTube. But we're sitting in here in an iHeartMedia radio station, and they sell advertising.
Right.
So how do you quantify that?
Yeah.
It's pretty damn hard.
Yeah. There's ways, but yeah, it's tough. That's what's great about digital. That niche was, it's an electronic fingerprint, right? Everything you can track and measure. Time they spent on a digital asset, where they fell off in the conversion funnel, what things they clicked on, what they liked, what they didn't like. You're tracking and measuring all that. And so I learned really quickly, if I can measure and optimize it, and then they actually have something that people want and there's demand, those were the clients who we went after because they were easy to keep.
So what did you find in your business whenever you were able to drive a lot of traffic and new potential customers to a client?
Sure.
What was the most common thing that whenever it didn't work, when it failed, what was the most common thing that was the problem?
Offer, product, message. I mean, there's so many things you can test, right? As simple as the color of the button, right? The offer being buy one, get one free versus get 10% off versus get $5 off. So there was which was great because you created this test ground. So anytime we launched anything, we'd have multi-test running to quickly understand how do you optimize the conversion rate.
So run 2 or 3 different campaigns that
Always
look similar, but they have slight differences.
Slight nuances.
And then you're just checking to see which one works.
And then digital's like a water faucet. So you turn it on. If it's not working, you turn it off, tweak things, understand what was working, not working, make those better, turn it back on.
Right.
It's great.
So to ramp that kind of a business up to $40 million, that is pretty incredible because you're getting paid a percentage of the actual spend of your client.
Yep.
So to get that to $40 million, that must have been a giant organization.
Yeah, I think when we sold, we had 3 offices and probably 230 people.
Okay.
30 people.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. One of the things I've heard, and tell me if you found this to be true, is that a lot of times in digital marketing, if the agency really does a good job of driving new customers, the biggest problem that I've heard is that the customer, your customer, the digital marketing company's customer, isn't ready to handle the influx of business. They don't have enough salespeople. They don't have enough people to deliver the services, whatever. And they just, in some cases, don't even answer the phone when the phone's ringing because they just can't handle it.
Yeah.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah, I've rarely listen. I believe revenue fixes everything in business, right? And so the guy that would come to me and would complain, hey, you have too many qualified leads. Like there was something wrong with the CEO at that point, right? I mean, you could quickly scale. I mean, I've never been in a business where that was a bad thing. We would help quickly adjust that, So that's a great problem to have.
I even have a guy that I know who's one of these sort of fractional marketing guys, and he hired somebody to do a LinkedIn marketing campaign for him to drive traffic and anyway he basically said I had to stop it. I was like, why? He said it was too successful.
Yeah.
Like you were getting too much business? He said, yeah. And he was a solo guy, so he's like, as soon as I get an assignment, I got to go do the assignment. I don't have time to respond to all this incoming business. Yeah. And I understand if it's the wrong kind of business, you want to turn it off.
Yeah.
But if it's the right kind of business.
See, I would tweak that. I would have taken that business and figured out how do you do it at scale.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So go one to many. It's an online course. It's a program. It's a Facebook group that you go into. But why ever limit yourself?
Yeah. So as you guys grew that business, why did you ultimately sell it?
So again, back to the little judge, right? Always being financially, driven, and people talk a lot of times like money is a bad thing. I think
Wait a
money.
minute, who says that?
Yeah, money is the root of all evil,
Other than
right?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe, and I say this a lot in media. Listen, if you're poor and you're an asshole, you're going to be an asshole if you're rich. But I promise you, if you're a good person and you're rich, you can do amazing things with money.
Mm-hmm.
Family, security. So I think being money driven is an amazing thing if you're a good person, right? And so for me, I was always money driven. And that financial event for me was kind of a rite of passage. Like I always knew I wanted to be able to say, I sold this asset for X.
So it wasn't a successful company until you had proven it by selling it to someone else.
Yeah, and I coach. I have a lot of buddies that are uber successful, and they're more interested in just continuing to grow that company and legacy and having it. And they've had offers, and so it's all personal preference. But for me, it was a financial event because it gave me a sense of security and also this level of accomplishment that I did.
So how'd you guys find the buyer?
The buyer found us. We were one of the hottest digital shops in the country. And so we actually had so many people calling, we had to hire an investment banker just to field the calls.
Wow. So you hire an investment banker. That's not something most people have experienced before.
Right.
What do they do for you?
So an investment banker comes in and they kind of help you package and position and prep the company for sale. Mm-hmm. And then they take you to market and introduce you to potential buyers and go through a whole bid process. And it's been great. I mean, I've now bought, sold several companies. I've been on the buy side, the sell side. I've been through multiple processes. So my experience now, what I'm doing with some of these entrepreneurs is me being a naive judge before I sold SQ1. There's so many things entrepreneurs aren't thinking about to be ready to sell their company. Right. Last 12 months trailing, EBITDA, margins, customer concentration, all these things, audited financials. So I'm really helping entrepreneurs in the capacity do that as well.
So whenever you guys get contacted by these guys, you hire your investment banker. Mm-hmm. The first company that contacted you got you to hire the investment banker, but then you market yourself to a lot of different companies. But that same company ended up being the successful buyer.
Yeah, I don't really have time to tell you a quick story. It's a
great. Yeah, we have about a minute.
It's a great story. So I go to I hire the investment banker, and I go to dinner with the CM. It was the Jiffy Lube CMO's brother. He had just started a private equity company. And we're at dinner with my business partner, and literally on a napkin, he writes up a deal and says, listen, we're going to give you this much money. You're going to have a war chest, blah, 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 blah. This is Friday at 9 p.m. We finished dinner. I call my investment banker, who now is a dear friend of mine, Sanjay Chadha. He's the best guy in this space on Wall Street. And I say, Sanjay, I got it, man. I appreciate what you had. I'm moving forward with this deal. Call off the process. He goes, Judge, you're crazy. He said, give me till Sunday at noon. That's all I want, Sunday at noon. So, this is Friday at 9 p.m. He had 14 offers.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. And, I did not go with that original company, although I'm working with them now on some private equity things.
That's amazing.
But it was a great story, just
all right.
the debate.
So your lease is going to expire in the future, and you're trying to figure out how soon should I start working on that? Is it 6 months or a year or 2 years before my lease expiration? Well, there isn't an exact date. This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and my clients always meet with me about 2 years before their expiration date, and we create a strategy. And then we review that strategy again a year later. And so we're always working toward what's right for them, not what they think might be an arbitrary date by which they need to figure this out. The keys in determining how much time you need are whether or not you're going to move, whether or not you need to expand, will there need to be construction on wherever you're going to go to, and all those things take more time. So do a strategy meeting a couple years out with your advisor, and that'll make things a lot more clear. For more information, please go to texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. All right, we are back talking to Judge Graham. find him online at judgegraham.com. So I want to follow up on that a little bit more. So before the break, you were telling us about how you had an investment banker. The investment banker delivered 14 offers over a weekend for you. And so you pick a winner. You're going down the road. You close that deal?
I didn't. So you want to talk about digging deep. So I'm in diligence is, it's a 90 to 120 day process, and it's brutal, right? So I am literally, give this visual. Everybody talks about, like, you think in the shower, right? One of our biggest accounts every 2 weeks would want to meet with us for breakfast at 7 a.m. And this account attributed 35% of my revenue. Way too high. Way too high. Right? And my business partner and I would switch every meeting. So it's 7:45 and I get a call from him. But prior to that, it's like 7:15 and I'm in the shower. And I am 1 week away from this life-changing event. So I'm thinking about everything it's going to do to my life, right? Can you imagine this state, right? And this is a large transaction. So I get out of the shower. My business partner calls me. And he constantly busts balls, this guy, right? And he says, this account just fired us.
35% of revenue just went away.
1 week away. And so I'm not believing it. And anyhow, long story short, it happened. And within hours, the deal's off.
Of course.
Okay. So I literally have to come out. All these people, it's going to change their life because I was not a greedy person. I have to tell my leadership team this has happened. I have to announce it to the company. And I have to fire 40 people that day. Okay, now you talk about digging deep, like where are you at? But the good news is 6 months later, I actually diversified that customer concentration, replaced the revenue plus 15%, and that same buyer came back and actually bought it for more.
Oh, nice.
That was great ending, but a painful process.
And amazing in 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty fast to replace 35% of your revenue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was great about our business. You could land a couple whale accounts.
Yeah.
And it, when we would get an account, it sometimes would require us to hire 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the account.
Yeah. One of my friends, past client and also a past guest on the show, he actually only had 2 guys in his company, but he went out and pitched a whale.
Yeah.
But he was really smart. He actually went around and found a whole bunch of people that would be on the team and would quit their jobs and come to him if they got the account.
Yeah.
The account. And they actually even went to the pitch with him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so he went literally from overnight from 2 people to like 30 people or 25
story.
people or something like that. But he was smart to plan for that in advance instead of trying to react after the fact.
Yeah.
It's like get the business and like, oh, crap, what do I do now?
Great story.
So you sell the business and you stay with the company, yes?
Yeah, I stayed. Well, when we sold it to a private equity company, and they said, listen, we're bolting you on to this bigger company, and we want you to help us package and position and resell in 18 months. And so literally did that, went to market again, and sold in 18 months. And it was one of the largest independent agency transactions around.
So you got to sell the company and then stay with it and sell it again on a bigger scale with more stuff added onto it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty fun. So what was the difference in the 2 transactions? As far as,
more zeros,
more commas. All right, that was easy. I set myself up for that one. But I mean, as far as the process, did you go back to Sanjay and have him do it?
For sure. Yeah, no, he is, for sure, 100%.
So what did you learn in the second transaction, or that was different than the first?
What I learned, it was a much more structured and it was a bigger process, right? So there was much more suitors. It was a longer process. There was more diligence. Took more time, wasn't as kind of quick as the first one. And that was just simply, I think, because of size and scale. Interesting
you say that it was a much larger deal, and therefore you had more suitors than fewer. That's kind of counterintuitive to what a lot of people would think. Yeah. The bigger the company, the fewer people would be able to buy it. But
listen, I mean, if anybody out there is trying to grow their company, they want security. They want recurring revenue. So money guys want to come in and go, I want to see predictability in the business. I want to see stability in the revenue. So the bigger the number, the more stable it is. And then I want to see market size, right? So if you look at those 3 things and they're in your favor, you're going to have a larger transaction. I mean, there's a multitude of other things. But so typically it may feel counterintuitive, but you're going to have more suitors the bigger that number is from an EBITDA perspective.
Sure. So you sell this second company, the combined larger company, and then what?
So I stayed on for a little bit. At that point, I mean, I've kind of used to being the guy. So I was still an executive role. I was chief digital officer and chief marketing officer. And, we were probably 1,200 people when I left, something like that, 14 offices. So just much bigger than what I'm used to, right? I'm more of a speedboat. I like 50 people to 250 people. And so left that. I've written several books. I do a bunch of keynotes, talk all the time.
So you've
doing
got
some consulting.
Scale with Speed is one of your books, Mastering Recurring Revenue, and then Attack and Conquer with the skull and swords on the front. I love that one. You didn't bring a copy of that one, I guess.
It's not done. It's in final editing right now.
Okay.
Should
so
be
it's
out
not
in like
published
2
yet.
months. Yeah.
All right, cool. That one sounds like fun too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, you were Mr. Go Get 'em, do it now. I mean, you must wear people out.
I'd ask Philip Philip, do I wear people out?
Philip is his video guy behind me.
Yeah.
So is most of your business now selling books, promoting books, doing keynotes, or is it out doing more sales training, consulting? Where do you spend most of your time?
So I have a good buddy named Matt Monero.
Yep, I know Matt. He's been on the show.
Oh, okay, great, good. So he's doing we're doing a conference together coming up soon, and then another boot camp together. So we're having a cigar. We're big cigar guys, and he started talking, and he said we're constantly on a walk, like a journey. And so for me right now, I'm still on this walk. I'm deciding, do I want to start another company at some point? Am I just going to continue to do consulting? But I love the consulting, man. Like business is my sport. It's my vice. It gets me excited. So being able to come in to companies that are, $1 million in EBITDA to, 15 million in EBITDA, somewhere around there, and just helping them explode is awesome.
Yeah. And so how do you do that primarily? Is it mainly focused on the sales, or is it more in the company structure, the culture?
Again, it's to me, this idea of human capital and creating a growth culture. If you focus there, sales is a part of that, culture is a part of that, mindset is a part of that, urgency, speed, expectation. I mean, so kind of all of that, right? So I really focus on 2 areas, scale and then the culture piece. And those are kind of synonymous.
So on the culture piece, that's certainly a big topic that I hear quite a bit from people that come on the show. What is the important part of culture to you, and how do you create a culture per se?
So that's a big question. One, I believe in a growth culture. So my culture is customer focused, sales, step on your throat, kill you, make it happen culture. Okay. So if you want to grow and you want 30% ticks, you don't come to me for like bunnies and rainbows. Like I don't create soft cultures to make people feel good. I create killer organizations to kill and grow. Okay. So big difference, right? And with that though, I create amazing teams and I build them around core values, right? So what are the 4 core values? What are the words that you're going to allow and empower your people to live and die by? And how do those words translate to make your customers successful? And I start there as the basis. And then I transform the organization. How do you bring that to life through the visuals in the office? How does it come to the pitch? So everything is around living and breathing those core values. I mean, like really living and breathing them. And when you do that, you get everybody aligned and in rhythm against those, and you build the organization.
How do you screen somebody to make sure they're going to be a buy-in to that core value if they are just joining the company in the first place?
You go through it's part of the process, right? I mean, it's an onboarding interview process, right? I mean, you give scenarios or assignments of, fearless is one of our core values, and this is what it means, and this is how we empower you, and this is what it means to the customer. How would you handle this situation? Mm-hmm. And immediately.
So you're really just testing them by sort of impromptu, in the moment situations.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I noticed I sat in on a presentation you'd made to a group a few months ago, and I remember there was a photo of one of your previous offices, and the office itself, the way it was decorated, was very unusual.
Yeah.
And you had in particular something in the front lobby as you first walked in the door that was very bizarre.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It's a 14-foot Hulk, Incredible Hulk.
A 14-foot Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And I remember. I didn't think about it until that moment, but I'd actually walked into that office one time.
Okay, cool.
I don't remember when that was,
yeah.
But it's been a long time ago. But I don't know why I was even there. maybe I just walked by and I saw it and I just walked in being nosy.
Right.
But I remember that Hulk.
Yeah.
And it really made an impact.
Sure.
The second you walked in that door, you thought, this is not your normal office.
Yeah, and that's what you want. Again, back to this killer culture and growth culture. At the time, that core value was fearless, right? And so fearless for us was making sure our people weren't afraid to do things and to try new things and to make decisions, right? And the benefit to the client of that was, our people were moving fast. Our people were trying the latest and greatest. We were pushing the bounds. So we lived that. And so for us, Hulk embodied that, right? And we wanted that to hit you in the face when you walked in and saw that and understood that what we were about, one of those core values was fearless. And this is what it would mean if you worked for us or you worked with us.
So what was in the office past Hulk?
Oh, but so Spider-Man was creative. We had an Army guy for strategic. We had Yoda for curious. Those were our 4 core values. But it was a 35,000 square foot space. So we had, we had a whole section with octopi, 8-foot octopi hanging from the ceiling. And that was all about our customer support team getting all their tentacles into our accounts and securing them for us and working with the customer. So really cool space.
Interesting that you have so many metaphors, visualizations.
Well, people are visual, right? You need stimulation. You need that visual cue to remind you.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. If you can look at that and it instantly tells you what you need to be doing,
right,
and where your place is in that process.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We will be right back after this.
Great.
Don't miss the 7th Annual Code Launch Startup Expo, July 31st at Comerica Center in Frisco. Meet technology startups from DFW, Texas, around the nation, and beyond. Noon to 8 p.m., including the showcase event at 5 p.m., a national pitch competition with over $100,000 in services to the winner that the crowd will choose. Register to attend at codelaunch.com. The 7th Annual Code Launch Startup Expo, July 31st at Comerica Center in Frisco.
For your free pass to attend Code Launch, enter code CL7.
All right, we are back talking to Judge Graham, judgegraham.com.
Like the cracker.
Like the cracker. I still want to go there, but I'm just not. All right, so who is your ideal client today?
I think my ideal client is, close to $1 million in EBITDA. So that's probably anywhere from 8 to 13 million in revenue.
Okay.
I think would be kind of the starting base up to 120 to 50 million in revenue and maybe say 30 to 40 million in EBITDA.
Okay.
That's probably my sweet spot.
And industry, geography?
No, geographies is no issue. I would say skewed more towards service-based versus, product-based. I work with a couple of manufacturing companies, but my sweet spot in my experience has been service-based businesses.
Right. What do you think the big difference is in marketing those two? Service versus
well,
product?
one is human capital intensive, big time, right? And one is product and widget and manufacturing intensive.
Yeah, but is there? You can promote either one of those
right.
In similar ways.
Sure.
But I just didn't know if you felt like there was any particular tangible.
I think culture. When you have, if you're an accounting firm and a law firm or a marketing agency, you're selling your people, you have to have great people. You've got to retain people. You've got to acquire people. So I think culture plays a much bigger role in a company like that versus potentially a product company where it's someone on the assembly line and they view it literally as just switching out a body.
Yeah. Of course, a product so often is an emotional sale.
Yeah.
Because, my daughter, for example, works for Volkswagen, and she's specifically on the Audi account.
Yeah.
So she buys all the marketing and advertising for Audi and Bentley
Sure.
in the U.S., North America. And it's interesting when I see her talk about or hear her talk about the profile of the customer and what it is that the customer is buying in their minds when they buy an Audi.
Right.
Or buy a Bentley.
Yeah, no, totally.
And all the things, the psychographic profile of those people is unbelievably complex and specific.
Yeah, it is.
Really specific. And they do that for every single brand, and not only every single brand, but for every single model within every brand.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
And so when I look at that,
sense.
I think, all right, so how's that different than a service? So, because in a service, sometimes, I mean, a lot of times that's an emotional sale as well.
For sure.
But it's connected to, I don't know, it's a little bit different. I haven't gotten my mind around the difference totally.
Yeah, they're very similar nuances. I mean, to me, again, the biggest difference is how you view people, right? So the people you're talking about, they're trying to really retain and grow because it's more intellectual things that they're trying to protect and build, like intellectual property, where I'm saying the people from, if there's somebody on an assembly line and that's 75% of your organization, they're just viewing that as switching out a body.
Yeah, I got you on that. So you have, and on industry type, I mean, you don't care about industry type.
No,
if it's a service, you could be
Yeah,
financial services.
I found what's great about my background is owning marketing agencies. I've worked from selling Lululemon yoga pants to Jiffy Lube oil changes to Kentucky Fried Chicken. I mean, it doesn't. So I've got a very great grasp of the game of business.
Yeah, I would bet. So what do you have coming up in the future? I mean, you're obviously writing books. You have another one coming out. When's your new book going to be out?
Probably 2 months. It'll be available and out. Right now, Scale with Speed and Mastering Recurring Revenue is out. Scale with Speed is in all the airports, which is really cool.
In the airport? So in the
yeah, and all the Hudson News.
Okay, yeah.
Most of
nice.
those. Yeah, it's awesome. I've got one of my buddies, Evan Stewart, is putting on a really cool conference here in Dallas called Obsessed Conference, and I think the web address is obsessedcon.com.
Okay.
So I'm a keynote. Matt Monero is a keynote. Coach Birch is a keynote. Lisa Copeland. There's several of us. Evan's going to be a keynote. Really cool conference of just about how do you become obsessed in your life and your business. So get tickets there. It's towards the end of July. Okay. So that's something that's upcoming. And then I'm really into market leader positioning. So helping businesses understand how do you get niche, right? Every business wants to grow, right? Every business wants more money. And you do that through tightening up what you do and becoming the market leader at that, right? So quick example, if you came to me and you're frustrated and you're an insurance agent and I ask you, well, what can you sell? I can sell every type of insurance, right? Well, can you sell horse insurance? Well, yeah, I could do that. Go be great at selling freaking horse insurance, right? There's enough market share out there. If you become the leader at it, you're going to be super successful. And I know that's a pretty tight example, but take it up one level. You could just do life insurance. Yeah. But the idea is I get them comfortable. I didn't start making money until I went niche, period. You can't experience the level of scale and growth unless you're that tight. And so I'm helping businesses figure out how do you become that niche, and then within that niche, how do you become the market leader?
So why is niche that crucial? I mean, you say until you went niche, you didn't really explode. But why was that? Was that because of you? Was that because of the way the market saw you?
I think it's both. I mean, the market and if you become niche, who you hire, who wants to work for you, the pitch, the results, the testimonials, the process, the delivery, you just get better and better every single day. Who you prospect, who you talk to, it just becomes tight. And when you become that tight, you're not worried about these one-off projects and you have the right people and, we got to go sell this and we don't have a case study. All that shit goes away and you just stay focused and you experience scale.
Okay. So I'm in commercial real estate. I've been in the real estate business for 35 years.
Right.
Haven't always done the same thing. I've moved from one niche to another.
Right.
But in commercial, we're far more specialized, I would say, than in residential.
Yeah.
In residential, some people will say I only sell above X dollars,
Sure.
a house worth $10 million or more, or
right.
I only do high-rise condos or whatever. But in commercial real estate, we have people that only buy and sell large office buildings, large industrial buildings, people that only represent landlords to lease the building, people that, like myself, I'm what's called a tenant rep or a corporate real estate advisor. I only work with companies and nonprofits that lease in high-rise office buildings and warehouses. So I used to be a landlord guy for 20 years,
right?
But I switched sides. Now I only represent the user.
Yeah.
And part of that really for me was I can't do everything, number one. I don't have the bandwidth to do everything. So part of it was just, hey, I need to narrow just so I can put my arms around what I'm doing. But also, how do you get to be expert at anything if you think you're doing everything?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And so when those customers come to you that fall into that set, your ability to close them in percent radically increases. I mean, one thing that I think you could escalate you to the next level would be, how do you become the market leader, right? And that's through testimonials, case studies, content, how you position yourself, how you evangelize it externally, how it's marketed, how it's packaged, how it's positioned. So to take that niche and that body of experience and now put it front-facing and really present you as the market leader, that's when you'll start to see another tick and scale.
Well, one thing I also found that was interesting is that whenever I first switched sides and started working with the tenants, I had a hard time figuring out what product type I was going to focus on, because, I could do office, I could do industrial, I could do flex, I could do retail, I could do hotels, restaurants. I mean, there's a whole lot of variety. And I quickly learned that retail was not a good place for somebody like me to be, because landlords won't pay us on a renewal. Therefore, you get to work with the client one time and you're done.
Right.
Well, I don't want that. I want to work with clients long term, right?
Sure.
So as soon as I said, no, I'm only going to focus on office and warehouse, then it gave me permission to say no to the retail. And even though I could make some money on retail, it's not where I want to be. So I had a hard time saying no to people, because if I got a referral from you, I want to honor you and say thank you. So I want to do a good job for that person. But what I found was I really wasn't doing that good a job because I was trying to do everything. So if I just said, hey, that's not what my specialty is, let me refer you to somebody who is that special in that specialty, then they were like, oh, thank you so much.
Right.
It was such a great way to say no without being the jerk.
You start making more money when you start saying no.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I mean, figure out where you make the most money now in your business and what you have the most experience with, and go with that. I mean, that would be a jump point, right? So back to the insurance agent, you make more money in life and you feel like you're pretty good at it, boom, become amazing at life insurance for this audience that makes this amount of money, that needs this much coverage in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Okay? Boom. There becomes your jump point.
There's a whole lot of people that are pitching different kind of systems. There's the Entrepreneur Operating System, EOS. There's a lot of other ones, a lot of coaching programs, et cetera. Do you find that any of those are any better or worse than the next, or are they all similar in your mind?
Yeah, they're probably also, I mean, it's really the user, right? I mean, nobody wants to take action, right? I mean, most people, it's a drug for them, right? I'm going to go buy this $10,000 program, and now that I've bought it, I should be cured. But nobody wants to do anything with it. They don't want to take action or be accountable. So, if you're seeking mentorship or a coach or a program, one, I would go with somebody that has done it. I have this concept I talk about all the time. Seek counsel, not advice. Most people seek advice, right? If you're wanting to learn how to grow your business and sell for millions of dollars, don't ask your brother that works at Burger King. Bad advice, right? But we do that. We stay in our little circle and we get comfortable, and it's not that the people they don't love us, but they're only giving us advice, and most of the time it's bad. So seek out a mentor that has real credentials, a program that's really done it, that's specific to what you want, and somebody that's going to kick you in the ass, right? They're not just going to sugarcoat it, and then be ready to be accountable and show up.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, because there's so many people that do go into all these programs, but in fact, I had a buddy who called me up and said, "Hey, I'm gonna join this coaching program," and I was like, "Okay, cool. Are you gonna do what they tell you?"
Right.
And it kind of stopped him in his tracks. He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I know that coaching program, and I know what they're going to tell you need to do. Are you going to do that?"
Yeah.
Because you're going to spend thousands of dollars for this thing. And he's like, "Good point.
Right.
I'm not going to do that."
Yeah.
And I know I'm not going to do that. I was like, "Then save your money and don't waste your time either."
Yeah.
Well, I would say if somebody wants to get a kick in their pants, you're the guy to hire.
I'll provide it. Yeah.
So where can we get your books if we're not in the airport?
JudgeGraham.com. The easiest thing to get a hold of me is JudgeGraham.com. So if you're looking to scale, grow your company, build amazing culture, really want an authentic and real person, I'm your
You're the
guy.
man. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Listeners, please check us out online at thenextlevelshow.com. You can find us on YouTube or podcast by searching The Next Level Show. See you next week.